What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Tuohey Talk Show. Is this, I can't even remember if this is episode 7 or 8. I want to say we're going on 8 here. And I have a really special guest. I apologize. I was not able to make it last week. I had family in town, but now I've got one of my really good friends in town who I'm extremely excited to introduce to you. Some of you might have heard him. He doesn't have a huge presence on Twitter, but he absolutely murdered the 2020 and 2021 market. He's been like a huge inspiration for me. I actually met up with him for the first time. Like I met him on Twitter and flew down to Aruba and met up with him. And it's been a pretty wild story, but we'll get into it. Without further ado, Connor Callaway.
What's going on, guys? Yeah, me and Bryce met on Twitter. I think through the last podcast I did with Jack and all them, and then talking from there. And we met up in Aruba. He flew down. He was skeptical about flying down, but he came out, made the mission, and then from there we've been talking about markets in all senses since, and been good friends ever since.
Yeah, it's crazy because as traders we all kind of have this bond right through what we do for work. But on top of that, then like there are some people that you just connect really well with. Connor and I have been like just fantastic friends outside of the market as well, and it's truly been a blessing. Gotten to learn a lot from him and just seen how much of a degenerate he can be too. But we're all a little bit degenerate at heart. And actually, when I flew down to Aruba, because this was back August of 2021, so NFTs were like really just starting to pop off, and there were the pudgy penguins, which Matt had bought. Connor, did you end up buying any?
Yeah. So Matt bought it a little earlier than I did, but once Matt bought it, I saw them and I'm like, these are adorable. Like I just wanted to buy them too. So I ended up, I was in Miami partying before Aruba, and I bought a few of them like on a night out, and I think I sold them when we were in Aruba, right?
Yeah. So I told my mom, because she was like, oh, like who are you in Aruba with? And I'm like, this guy, he buys and sells penguins. And she was like, she was freaking out. She's like, you do not hang out with the animal abuser. Those people will kill you if you tell. I'm like, Mom, no, like I was joking. They're pictures. I was just being sarcastic. And, but no, it was, that was back like peak NFT, or well, not peak, like beginning of when NFTs really started to pick up.
Probably one of the first peaks of it. Like, I mean, the first peak was obviously, I think, would have been around March, April 2021. But then after that, like they really picked up over the summer, like August, July, and that was definitely a hot time. They slowed down in September, picked back up in October. But the cool thing with the NFT market that I've noticed at least is the peaks and like the lows. It's so quick. Like in market cycles, I mean, obviously because it's rather new, but it's like slow down for a month, pick up for 2, slow down for a month versus like stocks, you're going to have like, 8-month slowdowns or whatever. And that's like in this market, normally you'll have even longer, right? So it's a cool market to, look at and see.
What's, for people watching, cause you do have a Twitter. However, you actually don't even have access to it right now.
Yeah. So my Twitter is literally Penguin Cons.
Penguin spelled incorrectly, right?
Incorrectly. Yeah. I'm not very good at English, so I spelled it wrong. But yeah, it used to be like Penny Cons, I think, right? And I changed it to Penguin Cons one day, and someone stole Penny Cons, so I couldn't change it back. So that is my like technical Twitter, and that's like the only place you'll find me regarding like stock stuff. But at the same time, I haven't had Twitter in a few months now at this point, right?
Yeah, so I think your last post was in February.
Yeah.
That's what I was getting at. Is like I'm sure for people wondering, like, okay, who is this guy? Like, and I know we're talking about NFTs right now, so we'll get to the stock stuff in a minute. Like, what's your experience with the NFT space?
Yeah, so right now with NFT space, at first it was just buying and selling NFTs, but one of the cool things that I wish for in the stock world, it was like a potential for. Like I always traded stocks, right? And when NFTs started coming out, it was kind of like you're like bringing a company public or whatever, which obviously I have no idea like any background stuff of that. So I really got interested in the creating of NFTs. So I've basically right now so far I've funded marketing for a few projects. They haven't launched yet. They're set to launch sometime in the next few months, but that's kind of what I've really focused on in the NFT world, and also meeting a lot of people who've created NFTs, and that's my focus there. It's more on the creation side, and meeting those people in comparison to actually trading them. That also comes to like a bit of like me being confused by the whole buying and selling of them. Like it's like you put so much time into stocks or whatever, but then when a new market comes out, like totally different, like NFTs, it can be like a little confusing, right? So I'm more interested and more working on the creation side of things for sure.
I love it. Yeah, that was really kind of a cool thing that I've kind of gotten to watch you do, and it's like it's totally different than like going and trading NFTs.
Yeah,
it's more on like the business side of it, right? Like you're working with the financials, like understanding how not just how much money to put into marketing, but where the best, most effective ways to market the artwork.
Exactly, and that's the craziest thing with any new business or any new venture of any sort. Like the errors, you just have to go through them, right? So I've definitely had my fair share of errors in terms of allocating capital in certain points for marketing, or even just like teaming up with certain people or like whatever it may be. And it's definitely an interesting market. It's really cool to learn it though, for sure.
Absolutely. And so that's we'll keep the NFT talk brief here because I know you, like you said, you're working on a few projects, and that's about it right now. Yeah. Actually, one more question. Besides the Pudgy Penguins, were you actively trading anything else like around that time or no?
So back in the day, I had a Bored Ape Yacht Club. I had a Punk, but I had them when they were, I think like the Punk was 40K floor, Bored Ape was maybe 20. But like back then, it was like I didn't really know what they could ever become. There was no like blueprints of like what an NFT could become. So, you make $2,000 on something like that or whatever, and it was like, okay, whatever. So, I sold them a long time ago. And other than that, I had one of my buddies who would buy. Like I gave him a recommendation to buy this, and then he had some of my capital in crypto, and we just do that type of thing. But I haven't really been buying or selling too many of them at all, really. I just haven't really got to be able to nail them, learn them.
Okay, well, I know I said we're gonna like transition to stocks, but I am kind of curious. The way that you have seen the NFT space change, like what it's become now, and kind of where you think it's going, because I know you have you're in tune with it.
Yeah, so I mean, the realistic of the NFT world is the way that like I like to think about it is kind of like, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people that listen to these podcasts know what the OTC is, and so like Solana market seems like OTC to me, and then ETH seems like small cap, mid cap, large cap. And so it'd be like NASDAQs and stuff, right? And I think the realistic is just going to become that the big projects that are coming out, right now, like Moonbirds just came out, and that was an $80 million project. And I think that's going to become a realistic. I think when a big project releases, it's going to be 80 to 120 mil market cap. And it's going to be harder to release projects. I don't think, like back in, October of this year, you were able to do, let's say, a 20, 30K marketing budget. You'd probably sell out $1 million of NFTs. Still possible if you know the right people and this and that, but it's getting harder for sure. And I think soon enough, like the $1 million projects are going to be kind of ignored. And I think at one point it's going to be, 80 to $120 million market caps for a solid project. And so the creators of these projects are going to put multiple millions of dollars into marketing and, making sure everything's okay, the artwork, the websites, all the content. But then they're going to sell the projects on mint for, 80, 120 million. I don't know how soon that is. I was kind of surprised that one happened, Moonbirds.
Yeah.
I thought, I've been talking to Bryce about this for a while. We started talking about that type of project, how that will be the future in January. But I thought that was going to be next year. Like, I didn't think that was going to be coming around now. So I think the projects are just going to get bigger. I think they're going to get more expensive. And just like any business in the world, like, they start off at one point, but at one point it's too expensive to start it, right? Like, say, like, you can't start a real estate development company with, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think you can with 10K, right?
Right.
But at one point that might have been a potential to start it with a lot less capital than you need today. So it's just, I think realistically, like the projects to create them is going to get a lot more expensive. Marketing going to get a lot more expensive. And then also being able to bring the buyers into one big project is going to be where people are going to look for, the projects that they're going to actually want to put a lot of their capital into are going to be the big projects.
Do you think that like legitimizes though the space?
I completely do, because like, let's say with like Moonbirds, right? I have no idea what I usually do case studies on NFTs to try and learn like what they did for marketing, like who they work with generally, like those type of things, what they probably use for a capital startup on it. And I haven't done it on Moonbirds yet, but I'm going to assume it was multiple millions. It had to be. There's no way it wasn't. And, if, let's say it gets to the point where you need to get $10 million to drop a project because the project's going to sell out for 100 mil, but let's say it's even just 50 mil, but you need 10 million to do it. You're not going to have these guys that are, scared to put out, their docs personas. You're not going to have guys that are just creating, rug pulls. Because if you're putting 10 million into it, you're getting that capital some way. And, to get that capital, you have to put yourself out there, right? You can't just be a hidden face.
You're going to like VCs who do not want their
Exactly.
name negatively associated with a rug pull.
Yeah. So when it gets to those, like that level of projects, it's going to legitimize so much of the NFT world because it's going to make it, expensive to get into. And when it's expensive to get into, you take out a caliber of people in the business world. Not that if you have less money, you're a different caliber, but just in the business world, it takes out a caliber of people that could just go drop a project and, do it in a week or two and try to make a couple dollars. It's going to be, people creating serious business and also like footprints in the NFT world. And, you never want your footprint to be terrible, right? So
I think that was a big thing. I could be wrong. I want to say the guy who launched Moonbirds was Kevin Rose or something like that. And he has had other successful, they were like 3, 4, I think maybe a $10 million project, but he at that point, and this is what I want to ask too. I guess we're not even coming close to deviating away from NFTs here because this is interesting. But not only did he build up capital himself, but he built up those networks that you need. And I wanted to ask your opinion. Like, I know you're huge on networking. How big is that in the NFT space, you think?
I think it's everything, to be honest with you, because it's still such a new space that I personally, like Bryce said, I don't have a name like in social media sense at all, but if you have that name for yourself in the social media sense at all for NFTs and it's NFT, focused and all of that, like you have a pull in any direction really.
Yeah.
And building that is a big thing, but also like you said, building the connections where, other people that have dropped projects. So let's say, for example, if Bryce dropped a project, I could contact Bryce and say, hey man, like me and you are great friends from whatever sense and connections. And what did you do wrong? Like, can you just help me in any way, right? And since it's such a new world, like people are very out there to help. It's already getting less. People are being less collaborative. But like in other senses of the world, like even like in stocks and stuff, like people are less likely to help a random person because it's a very competitive world. At first, the NFTs were so collaborative. It wasn't so competitive. It's getting more competitive now for sure, like a lot more. But building those connections with people and just being a genuine person will definitely do wonders for whatever, if it's creating, if it's buying, selling, if it's whitelist spots, like whatever you're looking to do in really any aspect of business, connections can be everything if you do it right. So
what do you think, there are going to be people who know nothing about this, right? Like, they know what I think if you're probably watching this, you probably at least know what an NFT is. You've heard of it. But they want to get into the space. Maybe they just even start off trading it. But like, if you were in someone else's shoes, how would you go about that networking aspect? You know what I mean? Would you be going to events? Would you be?
I think events are everything. I think I could be wrong because like I've always been kind of quieter on social media. Like my old Twitter that I had was just basically memes. But like being realistic, like the crypto space has more events than I've ever seen a stock market in my life. Like I've never seen like NASDAQ events, you know what I mean? Crypto has everything though. So the NFT events, they just had NFT Miami, right? And going to those events is not like, the thing is like, if you can get yourself in the door, which for this just happens to be walking through it, the door's open, right? It might cost a couple dollars or whatever, but you walk
investing
through
in
the door.
yourself though.
Exactly. And as long as you can hold yourself, like, as long as you can carry a conversation and you've worked on yourself enough to present a good image, then once you get through that door, that's all you got. You got yourself, right? So if you can go to these events and actually portray like a good image and like be yourself, I think that's the best way to network because you're actually meeting these people one-on-one. And like, let's say for example, me and you knew each other for like 4 months before meeting and we would just like talk online and like we were friends for sure. But like once we met, we saw like we had really similar goals outside the stock market. And before that, all we really knew was like he trades, I trade, we trade similar, whatever, this and that. But then when you meet them, you learn about the person, right? So if you can maintain a relationship, then you can connect with all the people that are in the NFT world. And it's still very small, very small like community of people, right?
Well, it's funny too, because, most of you guys are, on stock Twitter, YouTube, whatever. So like all of these concepts that we talk about are pretty commonly talked about in the stock space, in the trading space. But you go outside of that, people still have no idea what it, like. Go to your parents, go to your friends who have know nothing about stocks. They know what crypto is, right? But if you go and try to tell them like, oh yeah, this is the point of an NFT right now. Like this is what they do. People are still going to be very skeptical, and probably as they should be. It's very new. But they just don't understand. So relatively speaking, that world is small. It's just we're in like this.
Yeah, and
bubble.
that's one thing that like, you know, I live in Dubai in the winter, or at least last winter I lived in Dubai, and that's going to be kind of a going forward thing. But being in Dubai, everyone's crypto, everyone's NFT. So it was pretty cool because I was the only American stock trader out of every group that I would meet. Nobody really traded American stocks. Nobody knew what the OTC was. But in my business world before that, everyone knew what
That
the
was
OTC
all
was,
it was, right?
Like if you talk to anybody that I knew, oh, you heard of OTCs? Well, of course I heard of OTCs, right? So then when you go there and nobody's heard of it, and you're like, okay, well, I don't trade OTC anymore. It's a dying market, but everyone here knows NFTs and stuff. But if I go home to my hometown and I talk to my friends, they might know what it is, but they know the memes about it. They don't, you know what I mean? They don't know like anything above that, which just happens to be, you know, it's just research that people have done, right? So the NFT world's still super small. Like I see it as like an OTC, but like way back in the day, right? Like it's still a very small community.
A lot of opportunities still.
Exactly, right?
Would you also agree with there are these events, but I mean, a way to literally go to exclusive events is by actually buying the NFT,
them,
right? And you're going to be meeting people who are half the time you're probably gonna meet the owner of the project, right?
Yeah.
But like stuff like that, like that's probably another way to get into it is, you know, I know this is like still talking about the transition of NFTs from where they started, where they are now, but a lot of the successful NFT projects come with outside real world applications, right? Where there are member only events, member exclusive events. We were just watching a video last night where like the event was only for NFT card holders. So it's like
I've been to a few of them now. I met some owners, you know, at F1 in Abu Dhabi, and they invited me out to their event, and great guys. And you know, those events, everyone there like really is passionate about the NFT world and all of those type of things. And on those events, like the thing that a lot of people don't see is if you meet 1,000 people, right? Or let's make the number small. You meet 100 people. Let's say 70 of them don't give you a connection that was worthwhile. But you can still learn from those 70 people because you might learn what not to do. You might learn how to do what they're doing, but a little better. You're going to learn something as long as you're open to learn from everybody. And then let's say 20 of those people, you know, give you a connection that's kind of the classic, like, you know, anything you need, let me know. But, you know, that's, you message them and they're not actually like able to help, right?
Right.
But you're going to meet a few people that actually make a substantial difference in a certain area of your life. It might not be your whole life, but they'll make a difference in the NFT world. They'll make a difference in, you know, crypto. They'll make a difference in altcoins, or, you know, for them, they met someone that can trade American markets, right? So it's like you're able to learn from everybody. So as long as you go and you're open-minded in the sense that like this one NFT event, right? It's not like a lot of people try to sell it that like you'll go to an NFT event and you're going to meet someone that's going to change your life. But like I learned this a very long time ago, like 2018. One really good friend of mine told me this, and he said, "You're never going to meet anyone that's going to like just give you the golden key. There's nobody out there in the world that will do that, right?" And so as long as you go to these events and you know you're not going to meet one person that'll change everything, but you might meet 100 people that will all have a difference on little areas of your life that could change everything, is if you take the time to, you know, create a diagnosis of everything. Then those events are super worthwhile, right? So you just got to do your due diligence, I guess, on the projects and see which ones are like legitimate enough to have events that'll have that. And also, like, one of the best ways you can do that is just see who they're marketing to, right? Like if you found out about this project on TikTok, right, and then they're having events, well, sadly to say, you're probably not going to meet many people that are going to change your life if you found out about the project and their main marketing was TikTok. But if you found out about this project because of such and such that are big business or whatever you're looking for, areas of your life, then yeah, that might actually be a big project for you, right?
That's true.
So sometimes, like with NFTs, at least in this current day of NFTs, like a good way to look at, you know, if an NFT is worth it in your mind is it something that actually correlates to you, or is it just something random? Like every NFT right now is having events, right? But which ones are actually going to make a difference to you? Because which ones actually revolve around something you're interested in, right? So that's like the one thing I would say on like those type of events. You know, you just got to pick the ones that are actually have the potential of changing something for you because they're actually something that you relatively revolve around, right?
100%. And the last thing I'll ask about this is, and I get this will actually probably transition us into the next part, but are we in a bubble?
I think it's an inevitable answer that we are, But I think the realistic is too, is that you never know when it's going to pop. And you also don't know. I think one thing right now is the NFT world definitely in a bubble. I mean, everything theoretically is.
That's it, right?
Everything is.
Real estate, stocks.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
But certain areas of a bubble, like people umbrella the term NFTs as one thing.
Mm-hmm.
So like we said, like it's going to transition into very expensive projects. So would that be the bubble popping? Theoretically, it could be, right? Because we're transitioning into an area where the average person can't go make a project and make millions of dollars, which means that area of NFTs popped. That bubble is gone. But now we came out of it in a new way. So the thought that I kind of see is like we're everything's in a bubble, but how will things come out of the bubble and which areas could survive? And I think the realistic is, 3 years from now, yeah, everything could be down 90% NFT world. But at the same time, that's everything. Like you have the constant risk of pretty much everything in your life dropping by half right now, right? And everyone will tell you that. Your dad will tell you that. Your grandpa will. But everyone's still bullish on a lot of things because the realistic is you never know when the bubble's going to pop, and the bubble might deflate a lot before actually popping, right? So it might deflate and then it might go back up, right? So the realistic is like we're definitely in a bubble, but I think it's going to be more of a transition bubble. It's going to just change things and eliminate the negatives of the NFT world. That's what I personally think.
No, I love it. That's write all that stuff down, guys. If you're listening to that, like that is a great way to like get into the space. And I don't know. Again, we were talking about this in January and it already happened, right? Kind of. The NFT world is changing. It's way faster than we thought it was going to happen. But the NFT world is changing, and that's okay. You just need to kind of understand why and how to take advantage of that, right? Like, I still think there's going to be plenty of opportunities.
Exactly.
Now let's backtrack a bit, right? Like this is basically the past like 6 months, 8 months of your journey here. But like way back in the day, you were started as just a stock trader, really nothing more. I already know all this, but I'd love to hear your story, even maybe a little bit before you got into trading, kind of what inspired you, and then we'll get going into your journey as a stock trader.
Way back in the day, I was selling shoes. I worked at McDonald's and I sold shoes, like resold Yeezys, stuff like that.
This was in high school, right?
High school, yeah. I was like 15 years old, 16. When I turned 16, like middle way through the year, I quit McDonald's because I was doing well selling shoes. And I got to the point where I just realized, like, if I want to get to that next level in my life, I either need a huge capital investment for shoes, which I didn't have. With shoes, you can't just, you can, but you're not going to start making, multi 6-7 figures a year selling shoes with no capital investment. Right? So I wanted to take it to the next level, and I was tired of, meeting people and people's parents and, what do you do? Oh, I sell shoes, right? So I figured, what's a legitimate looking thing? Stocks, right? And so what actually happened was I was in an economics class, and we were doing a project where basically they give you, this is grade 11 of high school, so I was 17 and or 16 still, and we did a project. They gave you $100K of fake money, and on Monday you would write down on a piece of paper what stock you were buying, what price. You'd hand it in to the teacher, and then the next Monday you'd get it back, and you'd say if you wanted to sell it and buy something else, or like whatever you wanted to do, right? And I was, kind of lazy, and I just went on the TSX, which is the Canadian exchange, because I'm from Toronto, and I went on the Canadian exchange, and I saw like on the top it said like today's top gainer, and it was a ticker called WEED, and that ticker now is CGC, which everyone that trades knows. But I saw WEED and I was like pretty confused. I was 17, a degenerate, and I'm like, why is WEED on the stock market? But then I was like, actually, that's sick. Like, I'm just all in WEED. Why not, right? So I bought all of my money in fake money into WEED, and then every week it was going up. It was a month-long challenge, and I like doubled or maybe more my investment on WEED, and I was like, I'm a genius. Like I thought like this is the easiest thing ever. Like I'm just gonna be a stock trader. I went home and I was still 17. I gave my dad like $5,000 that I had, or maybe it was less, $2,000 or something like that. Just a couple of dollars from what I was doing with selling shoes, and I said, put this all into Aurora cannabis, because I'm a genius. It's gonna. And I literally texted him. I said, when it doubles, let me know. And he was like, Connor, that's not how the stock market works. No. And I was like, and my dad doesn't trade, but he has a brain, so he was able to tell me like that's not how it's. And I was like, and my dad had a lot of or a decent amount of wheat stocks, but from like a year before me.
Right.
So he was kind of like, why are you buying here? Right. Like, but I was like, whatever, just like put this in a
What
week.
year would this have been?
2017.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So like or 2016. So it was right before 2017.
Right, yep,
So it was pretty much peak weed market. So my dad texted me one day and says, no, I texted him and I said, hey, it doubled. I said, I want to sell it. So he sold it. I doubled my money again. And, you know, at that point, it's like, there it is.
Like, yeah.
You know,
all I have to do is double my money every time.
One more time. And, you know, I had it like in a notebook, like how to get to 100 grand. Like it's going to be 5 doubles or whatever. Right. And I thought like, this is the easiest thing ever. I started trading. And then when I turned 18, I opened up an account, started actually trying to trade though. So I was in school still. And the weed market at that point was, so I was 17 and then I was with using my dad to put money into trades for me. And then it got to the point where like one of them didn't work out and I was like, screw this. Like, you know, it's like the market was wrong. Right. So I was like, oh, I'm going to start to actually learn this now. So I started learning how to trade. I would just watch tons of videos. Like I think I started with like trading like DGAS and UGAS, like ETFs and stuff.
Right.
And then I found there was like a YouTube video and it was like how I made 1,200% on one OTC. And I was like, what is an OTC? So my favorite movie at the time was Wolf of Wall Street.
Right.
So when I saw like him explain, he's like, oh, you probably never heard of OTCs. Like this is a pink sheet stock. And I was like, oh, okay, it's pink sheets. So I started, you know, learning that. And I remember in my first summer, I would have been 18. I was finally able to trade on my own. And it was the summer before university. So I was going to university. I was going for school for business starting in September. And that summer I did, you know, not amazing, but I did okay. And then school started and I lasted a few weeks. And I just wanted to trade. So I traded in the back of my class. And, you know, I wasn't, like, again, it wasn't doing phenomenal, but I had this, like, I will do good at this. Like, it's just going to take time, whatever. Dropped out of school, kept trading, OTCs only, right? Because it was the only way I thought I could grow my account. I wasn't starting with much capital. You know, and then I continued to grow it. And then 2020 came around, and, you know, obviously that's when everything picked up for just about any trader. I was profitable before then, but that was the year that was like, okay, like this might really start, right? And then what happened really was November 2020. I was doing well. I was having a record year. I felt amazing, but I was seeing all these kids who like were my age. I was 21 and they were all like 21, 22, 23. And I was seeing kids just like put like $5,000 in something and like hold it and make like 10,000%. Not actually, but you know what I mean?
Right.
And I was just playing my same patterns every day. Like I was going for like, you know, just the consistent, like I never held anything over 50, 100%. So other than my weed stocks when I was 17, right? So I was like, oh my God, like I wish I could do that. And I'd always say like, they're just going to lose it. Like they're being stupid. But then like at one point I was like, I can keep making these excuses or I can realize this is the market we're in. I'm not just going to hold things, but like I got to size up more. I got to try harder. I got to, you know, all of those things. And I was living in Aruba at the time. And so I started like every day basically from mid-November until February 2021. I was all in every night. So my number one pattern was gap ups and every single day.
OTC, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And every day I had no buying power at the end of the day. So I did that. I mean, like that's probably a lie. There's probably a few days there
right.
But like for the most part, any day that there was the opportunity to do it, I was all in, right? And, you know, I was able to grow exponentially because of that. And, you know, I remember I always told my dad at one point I'm going to have a week where I lose a lot because of my pattern, but I'm going to lose a lot of money that I would have never had before. So it came to that point. I took that 1 week where it was like actually 2 days where I lost a substantial amount. And I made it all back, you know, like but like the only reason I was able to like deal with it and just make it all back was because I knew the whole time, like if I want to grow the way I want to grow right now, I'm going to have to take a really big time where I just lose a bunch of capital. So, you know, when that happened, I lost a bunch of capital. Not really though, compared to my account, like it actually wasn't a big deal.
And can I clarify? You weren't like all in one.
No,
every
not
time
at
it was
all.
right.
Yeah.
You were diversified in
exactly.
different OTC
So
gaps.
like basically all day, like at the time I would have never talked about this stuff, but like it doesn't matter anymore because it's not competitive. There's no OTC traders, right? But I would just gap up a ticker. I'd sell the gap up. I'd watch the ticker dip. Then once it broke the pre-market high, which is usually where I sold it. So literally what I would do is 927 would come around for some reason. Tickers would always gap up until then. And then at 9:30 it would open, right? And at 9:27, if you placed your orders then, and say the ticker's at 15 cents, I would sell multi 6 figures with a limit down to 10 cents. And people would always be too scared to do that. But what I did was I just got everyone's fills. So I'd have people trying to sell $5,000 of shares that I knew like that were like, oh, what'd you sell at? And I was like, oh, I sold at like top prints. And they were like, I couldn't sell till like it dipped. But I don't know if it was
orders placed ahead of
exactly.
Yeah,
and people would try and do it at like, and if I placed those orders at like 9.15, I think because of the size, it would stop gapping up. Like something would always, the algos, whatever, right? But I just...
Well, yeah, I mean, OTCs are, let's be real, it's pretty easy to manipulate an OTC.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So when people see that kind of size coming through, any big money that's in that, they're like, oh, okay.
Exactly, right? So I just like had it down to a pattern. I ran quants on it for like all of like a while. And, you know, then it came to the point, 3:50 p.m. came around, I'd have 15 people messaging me, like good friends, like, what should I gap up? What should I gap up, right? And, you know, I couldn't tell everyone. I couldn't tell many because the realistic was I had so much size that if someone else took the same size, it probably wouldn't sell the next morning, right? So basically every morning I'd sell the shares, watch the tickers dip, and then once they broke over that high, that was my favorite setup. I called it a dip and rip. It's probably got a real name, but
no, that's
And I'd play that, get like, you know, from the quants I was running, it was like an averagely you're gonna get like 11%, so I'd sell around 7% every time. But I'd also look for I'd just look at level 2. That's like the best thing I am in trading is OTC level 2. I can read it like a book. So I would sell and then go off. So I'd go to the beach. I was living in Aruba, and I'd go there, play golf, whatever, come back around 2:45, and then I'd play like what I would call like a breakout pattern at the end of the day. And I'd play that trade into close and then sell the ones that, you know, looked okay, and then gap the ones I thought would gap, right? So that's basically what I was doing in the OTC the whole time. And like those three like strategies, like what made me all my money. And I never like had those 50, 100, 200, 300% trades. Like I wish I did, but it was just everyday consistent growth. And what I did differently was like people would have like a 400% trade, but they'd have that on like 10 grand of their 100 grand account. But instead I might make, you know, let's say 12% or 13% of my account in the day, but it's my full account. Right. So it kind of evened out in a way, compared to, you know, what like other people were doing. But yeah, I was never able to just like hold stuff. I wish I was, but you know, I had to do it in the statistical way that I found. So,
and so people are going to be like, oh my God, you only ever won. But that wasn't the case. I mean, you've taken some.
I've taken some heavy hitters.
Some heavy hitters.
Yeah.
Dude, was it an avoidable loss? I know you've taken a couple decent sized ones. I mean, what were?
So some of them, I mean, like one of them, I took COUV.
Yeah, that was the one I wanted to ask. Was that your biggest loss of all time? Like
that's my biggest loss of all time. So I actually had my biggest gain ever in a day, and then the next day I took my biggest loss ever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had $400 or let's say $350,000 a coup. I think it was 400, but something like that. And it halted, right? So when an OTC halts, they suspend trading, and then they're going to open up one day at a penny, and the ticker's at 88 cents. And so again, that was me playing a gap up, right?
Yeah.
But with OTCs, they're dirty. They can just suspend it. So they suspended the ticker, and the next day I woke up and
it opened up like 30, right?
I'd opened up 5 cents.
5 cents.
But that was a month later. So when it halted, I was like, I lost everything. That's the best way to think. If a halt happens, you lost everything, and then if you get $5 grand out of it, great, right? But yeah, I had 400 grand position, and that day I was started off the day great, and then my friend asked me, they're like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "What do you mean?"
You started off green on the day from other tickers, right?
Other tickers, right? And so I'm like, I'm phenomenal. Like I was like, it's like yesterday I had my biggest day. Today like is half of yesterday, but like it's still like huge, right? So I was stoked, and then they're like, "Yeah, look at Couv," and I was like,
"Oh,
there's that one," and it was gapping up. Like I think so. Actually, I think it was gapping up. I might be wrong, but it looked fine. I thought my cells would have gone through, and like that's just. But again, that was the realistic with trading. How I was trading, it's like to grow exponentially, you got to also take those losses, right? So that smoked me. And then there's a few other ones like. I don't know. A lot of my losses come with like really funny stories. So I don't know if that's like I can talk about them, but like,
yeah, maybe some of them we'll avoid.
yeah. So like, a lot of them were just from they were avoidable losses that happened from other things. But yeah, I lost. I think I lost my other biggest OTC loss would have been, I think CLWD. So that went to, I was in Mexico. I was living in Tulum at the time. I was walking to get like water or whatever. And my phone died. And it was at 18 cents. And when I came back, it was at like 12. And the next day was when everything started to really die in the OTC.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah. And there was just no volume, right? So
Yeah.
I had a sizable position, and, you know, you wake up in the morning and the volume on the day was like, let's say just 2 times my position. But normally the volume was like 30 times my position, right? So then the next day, I mean, I can't sell. You can't do it, right? So I had to eat that one. And that was the realistic of the OTC. When the OTC started to die out in that way, was just, if you had size, you had to deal with it, right? And the only way to prepare yourself for that is to actually tell yourself every day, with the way I'm trading, something will come and it will take gains. But then, you know, after that happened, I think I reached highs again like 2 months later, not even like sooner, right? And just kept growing, right? So,
and that's the next thing I was going to bring up is people are like, oh, he just got lucky in the OTC run, but you transitioned to listeds.
yeah. So literally when that first halt happened, I get like a lot of anxiety. So I'm like, they're probably going to halt more tickers. So I don't want to be here, right? So I started looking at NASDAQ, stuff like that, and started trading all those tickers. And then small caps were always hard for me. Mid caps were where I was making like really good money when I was playing like the $10 to $25 tickers. And in that time, they had so much range.
That's what I was going to say. The range was unreal,
caps,
right? Yeah.
So it was basically like a small cap, but I could trade it a million times better. They traded clean. They were thicker. So I always liked,
you weren't going to move
ticker.
a stock, right?
Exactly, right? So I started trading those. And again, a lot of my so gap ups, I've never been able to find a gap up strategy on NASDAQ or
they're
listed.
harder. They're a lot harder.
Like I've ran like quants like for hours, days, weeks. I can't find one, right? So I had to like totally eliminate my gap up strategy, right? Which was my number one strategy at the time. Dip and rips I still found, which I think, I mean, when you get to NASDAQ, they got real names, you know, they're like breaking like opening range breakout or something, whatever, ORB, but like still a dip and rip in my eyes. So started doing a few of those. That strategy is paying for a while.
Were you buying the dips or buying that break of
buying the break?
Yeah.
So for me, it was just safer. It was like, why would I buy the dip when for me, I'm not good at that? Instead, I'll wait till it breaks, and then I have the statistical, you know, kind of
you have a risk level. Yeah.
Exactly. That makes sense to me, and I know it's going to work X amount of times. So I'd play that, and then I started playing end-of-day breakouts on listed too, right?
Funny, you guys who are watching have heard that literally this. I mean, Bohen talks about that literally. Like on you can go about any YouTube video on StocksToTrade and probably hear the dip and rip. It's the same thing. You let that stock dip. You have the risk level. You have a confirmation level to buy.
Exactly.
And it's so much.
And I think it's one of the best strategies. And the one thing that, like you said, Bohen plays that and talks about that a ton. I think the one thing about the market is it's competitive, but a lot of the retail winning strategies are, you know, you talk to someone and they also play it in a similar way, right? And so I'm not surprised that, you know, someone else like Bohen would also be noticing that pattern and talking about it.
And that's the beauty, I think, in the stock market, right, is that everyone is so worried, like, oh my God, no one tells their strategies. No,
everyone does.
What are you talking about? Like, no, if you're a fund trading solely based on 20,000 different moving averages aligning, that's different. But these patterns that happen, these very similar patterns, they're not a secret, right? Like
not
we talk about them all the time. Now, everyone is going to trade them slightly differently. Like I know a lot of people would buy the dip on the dip and rip and use previous day support as a risk level, right? But like it's still, and then maybe they add through that.
And we all have our like kind of different names for them too, right? Like, like I might call it a dip and rip. Somebody else might call it something else. And it's still the same thought process of the pattern. And, you know, that's, I'm a strong believer that's why the patterns work, because you have enough retail that sees it, right? And then also algos and everything like that, of course, which are a huge factor.
And then they get crowded and the market changes. And then the beauty is, though, the patterns still present themselves as almost the effectiveness that changes, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why you kind of got to be on top of, like if you're running quants or whatever, you got to be on top. When I say quants, it's very basic.
Is that back testing essentially for you?
Exactly. So I just, you know, we use a software that gives me all the examples of the pattern and kind of see what they do. But like, again, that's very basic quanting. It's not anything serious, but you just got to be aware of like, okay, like this used to offer me X percentage or X, you know, whatever. And now it's offering me this. And this used to happen 7 days a week. And now it happens 5 days a week. Now it happens 3, or, 92% of these used to work out. Now it's 76, right? And then when that happens, you got to change your position sizing, your risk, your risk and your reward, and all that has to change to make it still like a worthwhile pattern. But
the market's just cyclical.
It's exactly. It just changes, right?
So then the dip and rip worked really well for you for listeds. You also were a big fan of that afternoon breakout.
That was like my second biggest trade, and that's the one that really taught me about backtesting, because basically what happened was October. So I moved to Aruba August 2021, and then October I was playing those end of day breakouts and they stopped working.
2021, no, would it have been? Because that's when
2020.
Okay, yeah, I visited you 2021. I don't think you were living there.
No, 2020. So in that, it was like a month span, September, October in 2020, OTC end of day breakouts stopped working. And so when I started trading listed ones, I was very on top of watching like when they showed the same signs. So basically like what started to happen was these tickers would go for the end of the breakout and then they'd fail. And then after that, they stopped going for them in general. And then when they started going for them again, they would start to fail. And then they'd get to the point where they'd go through. And that was kind of like the cycle I found. So, with NASDAQ end-of-day breakouts, that's exactly what I started to trade because I knew the pattern in OTC and figured, let's see what it does here. And, I would just wait. Basically, I'd let it put in its high either before lunch or during lunch, come down, usually hopefully hold VWAP, and then kind of come up to a range where it's settling and then play the breakout of that range, right?
Yeah.
And so that was my number one, strategy at that time for sure.
Do you still trade that way?
I still do. Yeah.
And guys, this is actually awesome that we're talking about this right now because today is Wednesday, but on Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, Tim Bohen is actually doing a live webinar completely free on essentially this 2 p.m. breakout strategy in the afternoon, how he trades it and what you should be looking for. If you do want to check that out, click the link in the bio. Andrew, is there going to be, because this is coming out on Friday, is there going to be a replay available? Yeah, right? There'll be a replay available for you guys. This is something you absolutely want to see because that's why I only trade the afternoon now. Connor, you've mentioned it's a lot easier. They've already established their range. You have very clear risk levels. You know which ones are strong, but if you are not really familiar with this style of trading, this is a webinar you absolutely don't want to miss. Hit the link down in the bio. That replay will be available. But as I was just mentioning here, right? Like that to me is the easiest way to trade.
It definitely is. And the cool thing is you already know your tickers for it.
Right.
And what I love too is let's say I find sometimes open's hard because so many things come at you, right?
You're overwhelmed with information.
Exactly. Let's say like me and Bryce, we go to the gym or something and then it's 2 p.m. or I guess 1:30 this time. We check, we do a quick scan and there's nothing setting up for an afternoon breakout. Then we know the pattern's not there that day.
Yep.
Versus open,
there's no momentum there that day, really.
Exactly.
Right? There's no follow through.
Yeah. So then you just know right away, there's no point to get out there and, try something because there's apps you can't, that's a pattern that you can't make up, I guess, if that makes sense. You can't look at a chart and go, oh, that's this. It's no, it's either that or it's not, right?
Well, right. That's a great point you just brought up. How easy is it, right? I've been through it so many times. You're almost trying to force yourself to see a pattern that really isn't
all
there.
The time.
You can't do that in the afternoon.
Definitely.
If it's weak and under VWAP, it's weak and under VWAP.
Exactly.
But in the morning, it almost halftime it doesn't matter if it's weak and under VWAP if it's a top percent gainer, right? It might get strong again.
And I think I personally don't think that trading is. I think I think most traders are definitely gambling, but I think trading's not gambling if you do it right. All that stuff.
It's statistical edge.
Exactly.
Right.
Afternoon is the absolute least gambly time of the market at ever to me. Because at open you can say this open green, let's see if it goes
Let's see if it goes higher.
But afternoon you go in and you see all day of data. It's very hard to convince yourself something's there when it's not. Afternoon trading, and I'm talking the 2 to 4, right? Lunchtime's hard too. I completely avoid lunchtime. But afternoon, the 2 to 4 range, there's either a setup or there's not.
Yeah.
And that's why so many traders do leave early because, or even don't come back, I guess you could say, because you finish your lunchtime activities, whatever, you get to trading and there's no setups. You know that right away and you're not going to waste your time.
Well, right? And that's probably one of the biggest drawdowns of afternoon is even though you're going to have traders that do come back, you're going to have some that don't, and it's going to lead to less volume, less volatility. So like for me, when I'm going to trade in the afternoons, I know I'm very likely not going to hit a home run. Right? I'm going for just like a very simple single with a very set risk level, very set pattern. Where in the morning, that range can be wild. Yeah. But again, I didn't say the win can be wild. The range of the downside can be wild too. I mean, there have been times I traded I remember one of my bigger losses was SGOC, and I just was like, I loved the daily chart setup. It was breaking out over a very well established like multi-day range, and I was like, okay, perfect. And I loaded into it, and I got fooled because I was the volume that broke it out, and then I had to sell it, and I crashed the stock. And I'm like, well, there's the downside range, right? Like that I was hoping we just got more volume, but by the end of the day, you know how much volume came in on these spikes. You know what to expect. But again, I can't take that kind of size in the afternoon. That's okay.
Yeah, and the end of the day is cool too because you saw what happened during the day. And if you're in tapped with the community, you know if people are making money.
Yep.
You can see it on the charts too, but you know like if your buddies are all pretty euphoric, 9 times out of 10, end of the day is going to be pretty solid because you have all this retail money that's willing to go back into small
or
caps.
might still be in, or might still be holding, waiting for higher.
Yep.
Right.
And so if you come at 2 p.m. and all your friends lost money today, and not because they were shorting, like they all lost money on longs for this specific pattern, and no one's stoked, and the chart's not there. It's not there, and it's more evident than ever, right? So
100%.
I really like that 2 p.m. Like I said, I call it like I'll just say a breakout. Afternoon breakout, but that's one of my favorite patterns because it's so evident, right?
Well, I think I talked about this before too, and I'm going to talk about it again because we can agree, right? Risk management is one of the biggest reason traders lose, right? But there's the emotional side to it too. How many times, I'm sure you can't count, but I'd love to know, like, you start the day red and your goal is like, I want to make this back.
Oh, 100%. Right? And that's the thing with the market in today's day. That's the hard thing because, people try to make back this red, but they can't.
Back in the hot market, you had every 5 minutes a new trade coming up to make back your loss.
Back in there, like if I woke up and I was down X amount back then, it was like, I don't care.
I'll make it back.
5 minutes from now, I'll be up. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that wasn't because it was like, I'm just going to size into something and gamble. It was because those afternoon breakouts, there was 4, 5, 6 every day.
Yep. So there was midday breakouts.
Literally, right?
It was crazy.
When you had a strategy that say works 7 out of 10 times, when that strategy happens 10 times a year, it's hard.
Yeah.
When it happens 10 times a day, like you can't be red because it's working 7 out of 10 times. You size properly, and you got 10 opportunities, you're green every day.
Right.
But when the market comes to the point where there's 1 or 2 a week,
maybe.
Exactly. And if there's 1 or 2 a week and it happens 7 out of 10 times, then you're going to have to go the whole month trading perfectly just to be green, waiting on those specific patterns. So back then, like you said, it was like if you're red, you'll make it back because there's that same pattern that you just lost money on is going to appear again, and you will make money on it if you are playing them based on statistics. Right?
And see, that's like where I'm getting at now is like the problem is for me, if I trade in the morning, like literally the past 2 months, there's like an 85% chance I'm starting red going into the afternoon where one, my mentality is all messed up. I might be trading midday because I'm like, I want to make this back. Or I'm going to have to size bigger on something I know I shouldn't size. And this is bad trading, right? And that's why I just completely eliminated that possibility is by waiting until the afternoon to place my first trade. I'm not going into it red, going in with a very clear mindset. Like, okay, this is what I'm looking for. I'm not going to be clouded in judgment by like my redness, right? And yeah, and the beauty is though, right? If you lose on the trade, okay, the market just closed. I can't do anything else. It is what it is. That is how trading should be.
And that was the best thing too with the gap ups, I think, was actually waking up green. Because every morning I woke up substantially green, and basically if I got really good at reading OTC level 2 and OTC tickers and all of that. So when I'd wake up green, I knew like the market's there. And then if the dip and rips happened, if they ripped through that, there's going to be afternoon breakouts.
Yep.
It was pretty simple to kind of put the puzzle together. It doesn't take, a smart person. But
clearly, I'm kidding.
No,
Connor's actually very smart.
Seriously though, but if I lost money on the gaps, the dip and rips aren't happening.
Yep.
And if the dip and rips aren't happening, the afternoon breakouts, so then it's, I lost money on the gap, move on. Like I knew nothing else was going to work out that day because I was sized in all the gappers. I wasn't sized in one that went wrong. I was in all of them.
Yep.
Right. And so if they all didn't work out, it was pretty obvious to just, go take a hike that day, go play some golf and, try your luck on the course. But that was just like the realistic of like waking up green, what it could do to your mental. But now, like you said, if you wake up and you trade red, there still might be an opportunity because it's not all puzzling together like it used to. Like it's not I mean, everything's more.
There's a lot of sporadic movement in this market.
A ton, right?
Support breaks, resistance breaks, falling back down, bouncing back up.
It's just trappy, right?
Yeah, it's very trappy.
I mean, there's a good quote. I don't know if you know James Jude. He's a ex trader at Chicago Exchange, I believe. And he said, the difference between a choppy, shitty market and a good tape is usually if I made money or not.
Yeah.
And I mean, that is what it comes down to, right? And right now, I think more people can say it's a choppy market for the sole reason that most people, aren't making too much money, at least not compared to what they were making before, right?
Yeah, and we can kind of start wrapping up here, but while we're on the topic of risk management in a sense, right? Like, you've sized down, right?
Yeah,
like, you're not going into 2022 with the same goals you had for 2020, 2021.
Not at all, yeah.
Talk about that. People are going to be like, oh my God, you're planning on making less? What? Like, shouldn't you grow every year?
Yeah, so I think that's a huge misconception. I think one thing is I'm not trading too much these days. I'm trading, but not like aggressively.
You're waiting for better setups.
I'm waiting for good setups. My account I've taken my account, not lost. I took it down, like took the money out.
Yeah.
I'd say over 90%, right?
Yeah.
Like probably, like I probably have 10% of what I used to trade, not even, maybe less, of what I used to trade. Yeah, definitely less than what I used to trade with. So, the realistic is I'm not trading with much capital because, like we talked about a few minutes ago, the losses are way harder to make up right now because there's not opportunities. It's not always that you're not trading well or you're not good at it anymore. It's just the opportunities aren't there. So let's say you lose, $1, and normally you'd be able to make that dollar back, but what if the opportunity's not there? And then
you're
you
going to try to force that opportunity.
2x, I guess you could say, is a better than $1 example.
Right. No,
you lose
100%.
2x, and then the next day you go to the next day. I mean, what are you going to do the next day? Right? Your mental's not there. Your opportunities aren't there. So I think right now it's just like, why play that game and, do it with capital? Why not just, make a couple dollars in the market? But I think that's a big thing too. I think a lot of traders don't realize that. Like, let's say, for example, right, when I started trading, I wanted to make $1 million. I'm well over that. But I was thinking 10 years I'll make $1 million, right? And that was still like 10 years and $1 million, Connor, right? But why am I trying to like grow my account huge next year when I'm already 30 years, 40 years, 50 years past my goal, right?
Right.
Like, I've completed all of that. So now I don't need to grow in the stock market itself every single year. I can take a few years off. And I know that's not everyone's situation, but like, let's say, for example, you wanted to make 100 grand or you wanted to make 10 grand and you made 26 grand. Why do you have to go all in this year and make another 26 grand when you beat this year's goals? You beat next year's goals. So you've already made your 2022 goals. You've probably already made 2023 goals. Just keep it simple and, maintain it. And then when the market comes around to a time where it's plentiful with opportunities, get in there and again, make, your next couple of years of goals, right?
Yeah. And I'm talking for people that are listening to this. They could completely not be thinking this, but this is a common question, not even question, but thing I get told or asked, right? Like, well, yeah, it's super easy to size down when one, you made a lot of money before, and two, like, sizing down is still making good money today. I mean, like, we can live off of very comfortably off of our sizing down thing, but I need to like emphasize this. I want to hear your opinion on it, but it's something if you guys listen to me, I've talked about this before, but I am such a huge fan, right, of sizing down so much, especially if you're not consistent and if you're newer. This isn't about the money. If you're trying to get that consistency down, one of the big things I normally, tell people that I did, and what I think a lot of more traders should do was they're first getting started. I traded with like $2 risk on a trade. Yeah. Okay. So I made $6 today. I made $10 today. I lost $5 today. It wasn't about the money. It's about getting that process down, because then when the next hot market comes around,
exactly that,
you don't, ideally right now, you're probably still working outside of the market. You can save a bankroll for when that market gets hotter, but the right process to do. And then, okay, yeah, maybe when everything is running 200-300%, yeah, you're not using a $2 risk anymore, but you learned the process in the meantime and you still have money, right? Like, how easy would it be right now if you had your full account size to all of a sudden find yourself down like 30, 40, 50%?
Oh, dude, I mean, it's so easy that I know multiple people
who've blown up,
and great friends and people I, wish the best for, that have really had a hard time recently. And I think the easiest way to put it is every trader in 2020 and 2021, we were in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And what you can think is, imagine if, for example, me or you in 2019 or the 2020 COVID crash, we went all in, lost all our money, said screw the stock market, went here because we were never consistent, started doing we were doing whatever. And then next thing you know, 2021 comes around, 2020, and then we don't know how to trade. We hop in at the tail end of it.
Yep.
And we lose again, and now we're really out of the market, right?
Or you didn't have the bankroll to hit any of those moves because you lost it all before.
Exactly. The best thing, I think you're totally right in saying that right now is not the time. Right now is not the time for, especially a newer trader, to think they're going to grow exponentially. And the best thing you could do is build the skill. Once you have the skill, when the market comes around, you will get to say, I was in the right place at the right time.
Yep.
But if you don't build the skill, you'll never be able to say that, and you're just going to be salty about all of it. So, this is not the market. I know a lot of people that are probably new know, they made, their one buddy turned 10K to 30K, or, their one friend made 6 figures, or one friend maybe made 7 figures, but that was not in this market. And that's what people don't understand. It's a different market. It's a different time.
And that's not to say you can't grow in this market. That is not at all. I mean,
just exponential.
Exponential, right. Yeah. I mean, it's different, and that's okay. It will come back. It always has, but you have to be, you need to have the money there. So this is where it's so important to learn that process now.
And right now, if you have a small account and you're going exponentially, when the market comes, you're gonna be on these, you're gonna be a god. You know what I mean?
Right.
So there's no point in risking anything like that right now. You should be trading and learning. Consistency with small size.
This is essentially what you were doing, before, 2017, 18, 19, or 2018, 19.
Back then I wasn't, I wouldn't let myself eat if I didn't make $50 in the day, which sounds really, hectic, but yeah, my rule was if I didn't so in school, I became, shout out my principal. He let me be a part-time student to learn the stock market. So instead of 4 classes a day, I had 2, and, in between, so I would do those. I'd have class, trade, and then it was lunch, and I wouldn't go to lunch if I didn't make $50. So I had to make $50 in school on my laptop trading, and if I did that, I could go get lunch, and again, that wasn't me saying I want to make $5,000 in a day. It was being realistic with, $50. Let's just do something relatively small, and it was on OTC, so that was a volatile thing, right? And let's just try and make 50, and if I do that, I can eat. And it was a little motivation thing, right? So I think keeping your account small and just focusing on the small wins, but every single day, I mean, it builds wonders, right? So
I would take note, you don't have to.
Don't not eat. Yeah, definitely keep eating.
But no, I think the key point there was keeping that dollar
exactly
amount so small.
Yeah. And
I'm a big fan of not even putting a dollar goal on something, just trading goal. If you lose, did I stick to my risk? Because when you're trading with small dollars, it's easy to be well, I was risking $10, but I'm only down 15, so it really doesn't matter. No, that's awful trading, right?
I think one thing that I learned from all the boys over on this side of things, Tim Sykes area and stuff, I learned this, I think, from Kyle, great guy, and I would see his what do they call it, Excel sheets?
Excel sheets, yeah.
And I would see him post these with win rates and this and that, and I was I've never looked at this. You know what I mean? And I started looking at that, and that just gave me a little bit of inspiration to okay, yeah, I'm making money, but how can I make my win rate higher?
Right.
I want to because those are the things that are cool. If you talk with some traders about win rates and this and that, at least to me, I like to hear those things. So those are certain things that I wanted to focus on. So if you're new, that's definitely something that you should, instead of focusing on a daily dollar gain, focus on did I hit X% of my trades today, or did I keep my risk, like you said, at the risk level, or did I have my 3-to-1 win ratio or 2-to-1 or whatever, right? Focus on those little things instead of the actual dollar amount.
Are you trading your plan or your process?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
No, absolutely. Connor, is there anything else you want to get off your chest here? That was a great talk. I think there's a lot of value in this one for sure.
No, that's all. It was definitely a good talk.
Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning into this week's of Tuohey Talk Show. Connor, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Let me know down in the comments below what you guys took away from this, or if you have any questions for Connor. Not that he's on any social medias right now, but I can probably ask him myself and get back to some of you guys.
Answers.
Yeah. And I know do you even want me to plug your Twitter? Because I know you don't even use it.
No,
yeah.
I haven't. Yeah.
You're private and you don't have access to the login. Yeah. You gave your login to someone else, right?
Yeah. Because it got really toxic on there, right?
Yeah.
It's a different market. People act differently, and there's a lot of liars on that page, and a lot of people that just want to be negative. So
be careful what you see on the internet.
Oh,
It's not.
definitely.
I hate when I only see people posting winning P&Ls and like you go, and then their Twitter feed, they didn't post anything for like 6 days prior to that, and they post, I made 1.5 million today. I'm like, okay, well, what about the other 6 days?
No, exactly that. And I think as a new trader too, like you really got to be careful who you follow, because it can really affect your mental when you see that, wait, this market's hard. I'm not making too much money, but these guys are making 500K a day.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they actually lost 300K that day, but they had one 500K trade, or, obviously those are like exaggeration numbers, but it's just, you got to be careful who you follow, and, make sure that you're not following people that are going to misguide you to think that, you're going to make $1 million a day, especially not in this market, right? So
No, 100%. Well, unfortunately, no social media is here for Connor. But again, down in the comments, if you have any questions or whatever, definitely drop them. I'll try to get back to some of them. And once again, man, thank you. Make sure you hit that like button. This was a fantastic interview. And if you're not subscribed, be sure to subscribe. Be sure to hit that link down in the description below too. If you want some more information on that afternoon breakout, like 2 to 3 p.m., that is literally the pattern Connor and I trade still to this day.
top tier for sure.
Yeah. So thank you guys for watching. I will see you back here next week on the Tuohey Talk Show, and there will be small cap recaps mixed in there. Connor's actually about to join me for the next one here. So thanks again, guys. See you next week. We hope you guys enjoyed that last video. Thanks so much for watching and being a part of the StocksTrade community. We wouldn't be here without you guys. Be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Our goal is to hit 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year, but we can't do it without your help. So if you enjoy what we're putting out and want to hear more, be sure to hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys in the next video.